Okay, we are back again. This is number 7. That's right, E7. Anyways, that's a stupid imitation of uh how they say street fighting man in Dirty Work, which is an old movie and it's not very good, so don't worry about it. Actually, I think it's fantastic. That's beside the point. Okay, so today I'm going to talk about 3D Studio Max again. For the 7th time. This is the 7th video. And we're going to talk about the interface. We're going to get started with the interface. I'm going to explain certain elements, and then we're going to make a project, and we might not finish it today. Maybe we'll do like the first half, and then we'll finish it up tomorrow, because it's probably going to go over an hour. It doesn't need to go over an hour. I've picked a fairly simple project for you just to go guns blazing with. And then we'll see. Okay. I'm trying to figure out a way I can prop the picture up of what we're going to work on. But let me just pop to the tutorial here, or the full screen here. And I'm going to bring up the picture of what we're going to be working on. And it is this down here, apparently. We're going to work on this sexy little phone stand. And I'm not getting paid for anything for doing this. It is a Naluxy dual folding cell phone stand. And I'm not getting any money from this. So screw this company. They're probably trash. I actually have one. I actually have like 4 of them. I saw it on my desk. I was like, what's a little project that I could do real quick? The phone stand. I'd pick it up and show it to you if my hands worked. They don't. So, yeah. So, go ahead and go to Amazon, like I am, and just pop in the Luxy dual folding cell phone, blah, blah, blah. And it's the top one. Everybody's got one or 4. And we're going to work on this. But first, we're going to talk about the interface. Okay. So let's do that. Okay, so my interface, like I said yesterday, is different than yours. If you want to swap it back to default, it's up in the corner here. I call mine melon space because I'm so clever. If you hit default, it's going to take a sec. There we go. This is what yours is going to look like. Now our interfaces look exactly the same. And we're going to talk about it real quick, okay? So we can pull these bars off. One is, well, in pieces, or just pull the whole damn thing off. And we're going to talk about what they are. Now we can put them back, of course, like that's the beauty of it. It's modular toolbars. So we'll just pull these down, just so they're in the middle. You can see what I'm talking about. Okay, the first 2, you should know these. Undo and redo. Pretty simple. Let's make a box. Bam. Pink box. Bam. Put that sucker right in the middle. Your move tool up here. Just like I said, right click the spinner. Bam, bam. We're at 0. Okay, we got the snapping tool on, looks like. No, we just have that in the middle. So anyways, that's weird. Anyway, so let's say we didn't want that there. We could just undo or redo. Okay, we could undo a couple. The nice thing is that you can right click the undo and you can go back as far as you want. So I can go back and undo the whole thing. Or I can just come back and right click and redo the whole thing. Now it's back. Nice little option. Okay. So let's move. I have to use my move tools down here. This is a good time to talk about this. Okay. So in the bottom right corner, this is like all your navigation tools. Okay. Alt W does the same thing I told you it did yesterday. Okay. It just embiggens or maximizes the viewport that you have selected. And you can tell what viewport you have selected by this cool little yellow. You can see it right around the edge. This cool little yellow highlighted window highlight. I wish it was a little bit more obvious, but that's okay. So, oops, that's the other tool I was going to talk about. So right next to that is your orbit. There is a lot of different functionalities for the orbit tool. It'll orbit in different ways. I suggest you try them out. I just used the default one. I believe it's this guy. Let's see what this one's named. This one is Orbit Sub Object. Okay, so this is something you're going to run into. There is Orbit Object and then orbit sub-object. And the thing is, it will focus on, if you have editable poly on an object, let's select this guy, say editable poly. Let's kind of move this down here. This is your pan tool right next to it. We'll get into that in a sec. Your polygon is your object. Okay, so you're in object mode. When you press 1, 2, 3, 4, or 5, like I said, those are the shortcuts for vertex, edge, border, face, or polygon, and element. Those are your sub-object mode. Okay, so vertex sub-object, border, edge, whatever. Depending upon your rotation, or sorry, orbit, it is going to rotate a little bit differently. And it actually has a lot to do with what is underneath. See this little green thing that pops up? This is your rotational gizmo. If you Alt and middle mouse click, which I cannot do on this mouse, you will see a green little thing pop up, and that is what you're rotating around. So now that I've picked a spot, let's say if I click right here. So I have my zoom, this is my zoom tool here. If I have it selected, or if I click wherever, here, and then I use this guy, it is going to orbit. I'm using the view cube up here. I click there. Let's click over here this time. So the green ball is over there. Now if I click and drag, it is going to rotate from that. That sucks, right? I don't want to rotate from that. So when you Alt middle mouse click or mouse wheel click, make sure you're rotating in the center of the thing that you want to rotate. That's why I always dictate, because the move tool works differently for me because I'm using different functionality for the move tool. So just make sure you keep track of where this little green ball is, okay? And you can do that just by Alt middle mouse clicking. If it's not working where you're rotating, you're probably using the view cube. But in the help, it even says it, it should say it when you pop open the welcome screen. It's under help. Bump over a couple. These are important. Tumble is orbit, okay? Alt middle mouse click. It's going to go away, of course, because it's got a middle mouse click is pan, and then mouse wheel is zoom. These are okay options, or okay naming conventions, but this is orbit, okay? You need to get used to Alt middle mouse. See, it keeps changing it. Stay on that. If you come from Maya, that's another 3D animation program or 3D modeling program. You can change the controls to Alt left click and Alt right click. So Alt left click will rotate, Alt right click will zoom. That is completely up to you. However you like your software to navigate, and then just panning and zooming. So mouse middle mouse click for pan, so you drag, and then mouse wheel for zoom. So again, I don't use those. I have buttons that you've seen, maybe, if you've watched this, that come up in the corner. I'm going to bring that back in just a little bit. But anywho, so the ones, if you're going to do what I do, which is use the view cube, also your pan tool, the hand down here, you click it once and then you click and drag. Okay, whee! And then you've also got orbit. Okay, and again, whee! So keep those, or you can do it up here. But again, this is going to get kicked off weird if you don't define with your zoom tool where this green dot is. Again, if I put the green dot over there and then I use the view cube, it kind of sucks. But if I just use the orbit tool down here, we're back in the center. Okay, so that is object and sub-object rotational, I don't know, selection. It just depends where your point of focus is. Okay, so back to the bar here. So we've got some other we're going to go after undo and redo. We've got link and unlink right here. So you got select and link and then unlink. And then we're not going to talk about space warps right now. It's a little messy. We'll get back to that, I promise. So let's make another object. So let's make another cube here. Box, whatever. Boop, boop. Let us bind this box, or link this box, link this box to the other box. Okay, so click this guy, and click and drag. Now you see there's a little like dotted line that goes between the two. This is the parent-child visual indicator, we'll call it, okay? So right now we're parenting the child. We click and drag the child to the parent. So just like a parent leads the child around, the child follows the parent. The parent always comes first, the child comes next. So right now we're making it so this little box is the child of the big pink box, right? So now if we move said pink box, right, we should be able to move the other one with it. And there they are. Fairly simple, right? Now we can unlink this if you click the other guy here, and we can link it the other way. So let's make the big one be parented by the small one. Okay, so now the big one is the child and the small one's the parent, right? So let's grab this guy. Let's change it to our move tool here. Let's go wee, and all of a sudden we're rocking. Okay. Um, this also works for your rotational tool. So if you click the rotate, it'll rotate with it. Maybe you don't love that. You can easily just unlink it. They are going to change locations always when you do that. So if you want to go back down to where you were, you can just right click these and drop back down, or just use the undo until you get back to where you wanted to. So the first link was about there. So the create, let's go right there. Let's undo. Bam, right where we were. Back to the start. Okay. So now we've got this guy. This is going to only show, this drop down is only going to show the objects that we have selected here. Okay. So if we get rid of this guy, so right now we're looking at everything. If we want to turn off geometry, or if we only want to see shapes, or is it select? If we only, it's the selection, I'm sorry. If we only want to be able to select shapes or lights or cameras, you have this down. Okay, so now I can't select my boxes. But if I go to geometry, let's actually add a camera. This is a really dumb example if you can't put something else. So we'll just click and drag a physical camera on here. Okay, so now we got a couple objects. So I have geometry selected. And it's like, oh, I want to select my camera. I can't. Why can't I? Because this is basically just controlling what you can select. If you leave it on all, there you go. You can select all these other things. Or if we maybe add a shape as well, like we had the other day, let's add a circle down here. Let's go beep. Now we change it to shapes. And now I can't select anything but the shape. If I make a big marquee, it's only going to select the shape. Okay. Next, this is just your selection tool. Okay, the letter Q. This is important because sometimes when you select things with a move to, let's flip this back to select everything. We want everything to be active. Sometimes when you select an object, you accidentally click and drag. Okay, things happen all the time, in fact. And that was on. That was weird. Okay. So sometimes, like I was saying, you might accidentally click and drag something a minute amount. Okay. If you don't want that to happen, if you're being very particular, press Q and then select the object and then switch to move. So W. Okay. So like this is a tiny amount. You can barely see it, right? When you select stuff, sometimes that happens and it will throw off tons of important stuff you've been working on. Maybe your center vertices aren't aligned anymore, and you can barely tell, right? Like I moved that like that much. You can't tell I moved it. So if you want to select something first, Q will bring you to this, then select the object, and then use your move, rotate, scale. Okay, next in the line is select by name. So as soon as I click this, a menu is going to pop up. And I've got 5 things to pick from here. The point of the camera, or sorry, the target of the camera itself, circle, and the 2 boxes. Not super exciting. Not unexciting either. You can look at them in different ways. It's just, I don't know. I don't use this very often. I can't stop. There we go. Sorry, my hand sucks. I don't use this very often unless I have a bunch of things on the stage. And if I do have a bunch of things on the stage, I freeze those objects a lot. So if you want to find something particular, maybe you name them better, you can click right here and rename them. I actually right click. Oh, I guess I can't rename them here. Weird. Anyways, you can do that in the next menu, or in the layer editor. So anyways, if you have a bunch of things on your stage, click this guy, and then, I don't know, double click or just select OK. I don't use this a lot of the time. Okay, next thing on the menu here, different types of selection tools. So maybe instead of a marquee, we want to make a circle selection. Maybe instead of the circle selection, we want to do the kind of weird boxy selection here. And maybe I just want to get in and around this. I don't want to select that. Or a nice thing to do, and then there. So we got those items selected. Or sometimes let's just add a turbo smooth on this, and I'll show you where it comes in handy. So let's add a couple turbo smooths. Let's do a wireframe on shaded here, or sorry, edge faces. Jeez. Maybe one more turbo smooth. And let's add an editable poly. Let's say I only want to select, a couple vertices in a row. Let's move this bar up here a little bit. So I've got this crazy selection here. Maybe I just want to get just this line of vertices. Oops. So let's click this guy. Let's click and drag. Select your selection tool first. If you select with these, sometimes it gets a little messy. So hit this guy. And now we'll click and drag. And we'll just create a line of vertices, or we'll select the line of these vertices right through the middle here. And go all the way back. Now, I will be selecting some in the back. But as you can see now, if we zoom in here, we've got just that line of vertices selected right here. You might want backface culling, that is so that you don't select the vertices behind, but that's for a little bit later. Okay, so that is the crazy selection. Also, there is the spray paint selection, and then you can kind of click and drag, and then when you click and drag, see how they're changing. So that's kind of neat. I don't use this ever. It's kind of a stupid tool. I'm sure it's got some functionality. I just never use it. So I like to keep it a box. And then there's this tool right next to it. It's how you want to select the object you're selecting. I suggest leaving it on window crossing. Now, what happens here if you do, I'm going to get rid of this, or we'll leave it on there, but let's say I change this guy from, well, let me tell you what it does first. So when you create a box, all you have to do is slightly get a little bit of it to select it. Okay. So like, look at that. I barely selected any of it. I just got the bare minimum corner right there, right? Well, what if I change this? If I go like this, oh, it's not selecting it anymore. What do I have to do to select it? Well, you have to cross the entire object to get the thing. See that? So this sometimes freaks people out because they accidentally press this button, because they're used to being able to select like this, but then they flip this on, and now they can't select squat, right? And if you look at the icon, it makes a lot of sense. It's a box with a box inside of it. And here's I guess there's a tooltip on this guy. But yeah, essentially if it's in the middle, it means you got to select this whole dang thing. But if you just want a piece of it to select it, just get this corner here. So I like that. Okay. So the next are your move, rotate, and scale. These are the cornerstone of your tools here. Okay. So let's move this up just a little bit here. We'll put it back up there. I mean, like I said, I got the buttons. We can rearrange it. Move. Okay. Move tool. Let's select this guy. Very simple. W moves in 3 dimensions, X, Y, and Z. So if we want to go in Y, click the green one, blah, 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 blah. Not rocket science, not too hard. Just like we talked about yesterday, if you click in between here with these 2 dimensions, the gizmo will lock you into those 2 dimensions. So for instance, let's move this over here since that's in the way. See how the gizmo has this kind of highlight in the middle here? This is how I know I'm only moving in those 2 dimensions. Okay? Or this one. These 2 dimensions. Or these ones. These 2 dimensions. Or singularly with just holding these, and pulling them in this direction. These will be really handy down the line because occasionally you're only going to want to work in those. You're going to want to move stuff in those dimensions. Okay. All right. So next would be the rotate. Pretty straightforward. Our rotation point is down here at the bottom. So let's just do one of these. Okay. Same idea. You can kind of flop it around and go crazy. But they're going to rotate in X, Y, and Z. The next one, again, is pretty straightforward. Scale tool, same thing. Scale in X, Y, and Z. A lot of the times when you're working on something, I want you to double check and make sure that you're scaling in the dimensions you think you are. If you go in the middle, you're going to scale in all the dimensions at the same time. You're going to keep the proportions of the object that you're scaling, okay? If you only do the two, well, you're only scaling in those dimensions. So you didn't make it as wide. You just kept it skinny, okay? So let's undo that. And if we blow it up in all dimensions, now it's huge and it's going to be much thicker. Okay. Same thing with the other ones. You can just scale in a single dimension and go crazy. Or you could flatten it out. Your mileage may vary. It's whatever you want to do with it. Okay. There's some functionality that you'll kind of get used to with that. So the next guy is the select in place. I don't actually use this. I think it's just, oh, it's going to pop it on the surface. That's what it is. But it's based on your pivot. So that's something you're going to want to kind of play with. So let's say you change your pivot. Let's put the pivot down. So your, what is this panel called? The hierarchy panel. Let's affect the pivot. Let's move the pivot down quite a bit here. Beep, beep, beep. Let's go right there. And now let's use that same select in place. Use the W. Oh, nope, select in place. And I think we just do this. Yeah, okay. So we just changed the pivot and then now it's going on a different surface. I don't think I've ever used this tool. I haven't really had the need to. I kind of place things how I want them, but I can see it's fun. So your pivot's way off. If you want your pivot back, just hit affect pivot only, center to object. And now if we use that same weird tool, it will be at the halfway point because our pivot is in the center of that object. You know what? This might actually be a little handy. Kind of glad I ran into that. Cool. Anyway, there's a lot of tools in the software. I apologize if there's a few I don't know. Okay, the next one, kind of important, is how you're going to rotate. Okay, is how you're going to move or rotate or scale based on the different coordinate systems that are built into each object. Okay, so right now we've got this weird thing here. Okay, if I want to move it, or let's say I rotate it, maybe we'll create a better, let's make it really flat. Let's make it really flat, like that. And then let's rotate it forward. Okay, what if I want to move it in the dimension that it's kind of facing? So it's kind of pointing up and over, right? Like, you know, if I did that by hand right now, I would have to use these two dimensions and pull it. I'd have to pull it in these two dimensions and go up and over. Okay, well, there's got to be a better way. Been squeezing orange juice the difficult way the whole time. Well, there is. It's called your local coordinate system. So if you click that guy, notice how the the movement axis has changed. So technically it's not changed. It is going with the normal of the axis of the object itself. Okay. So now when we click and drag, it's going to go directly in that position. We don't have to use these two. In fact, these two would take it off axis, right? That wouldn't be right. Or if we just want to move it straight into the pancake direction, go that way, right? So this is the different coordinate systems. We've got view, we've got screen, which is based on the screen that so I don't get depth basically. It's just what I'm looking at with my screen, right? So now I get a little bit of depth back there. Um, uh, world, I don't use world very often. I'm wondering what it's different than view. Must be different under some circumstances. I don't use it all the time. Local, gimbal, again, that's like the kind of offset of it. The grid itself, and then the working pivot, which is something we'll talk about later. Local aligned, that's very similar. Not sure exactly. But then the nice one here is another object. So if we click that guy, all of a sudden we have the pivot of another object, which is kind of cool. I don't use those very often. I just use view and local and occasionally the working pivot. Working pivot is kind of a pivot that you can set outside of an object and use it in its sub-object mode. So sometimes you can't get the right direction, I guess. Um, and you can go here and edit the working pivot and then kind of get a really unique pivot for, excuse me, soda burps. I apologize. Um, you can get a nice unique pivot for certain situations. Okay, so we've got pivot point center. This is just changing where the pivot point is located uh, for certain movements. I don't mess with these very often. I keep it on the base, so it's always on the object. Um, let's see. This is for short. Oh, sorry, we're not there yet. This is the manipulator tool, which I don't use very often. Select and manipulate. Yeah, I don't really use this, so maybe we'll talk about that some other time when I learn what it does. I honestly don't use this. There's no help on it either. Maybe we'll look that up one day. I'm just going to keep blasting along. These are your shortcuts. Override. They're important between the different user interface shortcuts. That's what it says right there. Come back up. Come back up. Toggle between using only the main user interface shortcut keys and using both the main shortcuts and shortcut keys for groups such as edit pad. So hopefully, if you get comfortable with the software, you will make your own shortcuts, or you'll abide by the shortcuts in the software when you're in either editable poly or outside in object mode. Like I said, I have a whole bunch of shortcuts I use. Just how it works. Okay, so the next, this is what I'm comfortable with. How you use the software is probably going to be vastly different than how I do. Okay, let's go with the snapping tools. So this is snapping. Right now we can turn on different snapping. Let's do grid points just as an example. Now we'll be able to see on the floor here that we can snap to each individual spot. So if we want to move, one grid point at a time or to an exact grid point from a dimension, once you see that cross come up, you're snapping to a specific spot on the grid. Now you can snap to other parts of objects or different areas. Vertex, face, edge segments, like this guy here. I think we should be able to snap to this guy. Yeah, see how we're snapping to this, these edge segments here? Notice how it goes around. There are a bunch of different things to snap to. Let's do a vertex snap. We could probably snap to this guy here. So if we go up and there, now we've snapped. Well, actually, let's move this down so you can see it a little bit better. I'm sorry about that. So we'll move the pivot down so you can see the thing first. Let's just go right there. That pivot point, and then we'll snap. Now that the pivot point's way off, let's snap it right there. See how it pops on? These are vertex snaps. So we can do all sorts of these guys. We can go there. We could go down to this one. And just notice, look how it pops to it. And you got that nice green In this case, the vertex is that, but on the grid, it's an X. And yeah, anyway, so kind of handy. Let's look at some of the. Okay, so this is like a starter thing I would suggest right away. Um, enable shape angle constraints, and then enable axis constraints. Make sure these are on, because if they're not on, and we'll turn the snapping off, you are going to be pulling this. Is it this one? You're going to be pulling in dimensions you don't specifically mean to. So just make sure these snaps are on. Well, angle constraint is up to you, but axis constraint is huge. You don't want to be bouncing in and out when you're trying to get exactly the dimension you want to get to. So let's go to our, the next one is angle snap. This one is by degrees. Okay, so let's grab this guy back, or let's just grab this guy here. And let's put him in the center here. So we've got this sweet looking box. Let's zoom out a little bit. Put the axis right in there, or the pivot right in the center. And let's turn on the snapping tool for rotation. So that's what this one is. This one is for your move. This is rotation, and this is percent snap, and this is spinner snap. I don't use these last two, but so we got this right in the middle. Let's turn on our rotation tool. And then right now, if we click and drag, you can see the numbers come up 35, 40, 45, 55, 65. It's rotating by 5 degrees. Okay, if I turn this off, it's up to me to get it to those numbers. Like maybe I just want to go exactly 45. So if I click and drag, oh shit, I didn't say that. 45.45, 45, that sucks. 45.05, that's going to be tough. Okay, you can also type it in down here, down in these general world coordinates down here at the bottom. But instead, let's undo this. Let's just type in 45 or 5 or 10 or 15. 15 and 5 are great increments. So this is only going to rotate by 15 degrees right now. So you're going to be able to hit 90. Oops, you got to turn it on first. You're going to be able to hit 90, 45, pretty easy. You can see it's only rotating by 45 degrees exactly. Now the same thing is going to happen when you're in a sub-object mode, right? So let's add an editable poly to this guy. Let's go into face mode. And the same thing's going to happen here. I just want to rotate by, let's say, 45 degrees. So, boom, right there, 45 degrees. Fantastic. Now, if I didn't have that snapping tool on, and let's undo that. Let's see how far I'd get. Let's get 45 in here. Let's just... And if it doesn't come up here, look in the bottom of the world coordinates. You can see right above where it says enabled down there. And I'm at 46, 45, 46, 45.55, 45.08. Tough as hell. So I'm just saying instead, and these are sub-objects. You can't even get that back. It's a whole thing. So anyway, so I would suggest just making sure you can get it back, but it's tough. So I would just make sure you have your snapping tool on when you're trying to do stuff like that. We're going to skip percent snap and spinner snap. I don't use them. You could use them. I don't use them. All right, so the next is selection sets. We don't have any selection sets. Okay, selection sets. Let's cancel that. Get out of the subject mode. Selection sets are exactly what it sounds like. Your objects you have selected. Let's call this crap. So I'm going to bring my keyboard in here. Select in selection sets. I'm going to type in capital CRAP. Enter. So right now, this box, this squeezed, turbo smoothed box, and this circle are the collection, the selection set called crap. Okay. So if I click off of it, I'm like, oh, I want to get my crap back. I want those selected specifically. Hit the drop down. Crap is selected. Okay. Perfect. Good crappy selection. Okay. Next, and this works for sub-object too. You can go in here, if I remember right, and select these three, and then I can call this, let's call this double crap. Double crap. I can't type very well. And then select off of it. And now when I select this guy, oh, I have to be in this guy. I think now I have to be in the sub-object mode, or did I not even press enter? There it is. So now that I'm in the sub-object mode, if I hit double crap, there we go. But this is sub-object. So if we go above into the world, or into the normal selection, object selection, I can select crap again. But I can't select double crap until I'm actually in a sub-object mode that has it. So there it is again, double crap. To see these selection sets and to delete them, etc., you can change the name, delete them, do whatever you want. Combine, subtract. It's kind of cool. They're not great. This isn't a good example. It's just a quick example. But when you have, different, I don't know, elements of the same model selected, and it took a while to get that selection set, or that selection actually selected, it's a really good idea to make a selection set out of it. Because sometimes a selection could take like 30 seconds or longer. It's just some things get really complicated. So selection sets are pretty sweet. Okay, mirror. It's exactly what it sounds like. Okay, it's just mirror the object in different dimensions. There is a nice combination of this to work with a mirrored object so you can see both sides. We're not going to get to that. It's a little complicated. And then, so that's that guy, mirror. And then the next one is align. I think it's the align tool. Okay, so let's say I've got, what do I want to align? Let's rotate this guy like that, and maybe like this. And let's scale it up some so we can actually see what happens. So this circle is off axis. It's kind of crazy. Is there two of them? That's weird. Okay, so it's off axis. Let's align it to this cube. Okay, and we'll get options. So we clicked it once, press align, and then click your object you want to align it to. So first off, it is only aligned in the X position. So let's click these guys on. So now the center is aligned to this object. But what about the orientation? So if we click these guys, now it is halfway up in the local orientation. And then if we scaled it, which we did, now it's scaled to the size of the box that we scaled down. So these options really help you get something. So let's leave that there. Let's give one more example. So let's move this circle out a bunch and let's zoom out a bunch. And let's say I'm going to make a sphere here. Let's create a new sphere. Or teapot. Teapot's where it's at. Let's make a teapot right here, right? Okay. Now, let's put this teapot right where, let's get rid of that guy. Let's put this teapot, let's align it right with this circle, okay? So let's press this guy. And let's click that guy. And he is right in the middle. So actually we need to pick these other ones. So, but really all we want is just the position for this one as the example. So now if we rotate over the top, we can see that it is fantastically aligned right in the middle. Now if we rotate these things and did the same thing and made sure those checkboxes were on, then it would align it to those as well. But I just wanted the position align for the example. Oh, I don't have my buttons up here. I should have left those up. It's just I wanted my interface to look like yours. Okay, next one. This is a hierarchy selection. Scene Explorer. So This is just what we have in the scene. I have some things turned off here. So we're only seeing cameras right now. So I have that camera in there. You want these checked. You want everything checked so you know what's in your scene. Right now they are checked off, so we can't see them. There should be something else too, like a shape. We had a couple boxes. Oh, top one. Jeez, I didn't even see it right there. So this is just another way to see what's in your scene. You can select things, you can rename things. If you just click once, just after it's selected, click once, and you can rename them. You can also rename them in the panel up here. So don't worry about that. You can select any of these things and just rename them. In case you don't like the name Circle001, I know I named my first child that. Let's see, what else do we got here? Okay, Layer Explorer. Now this is cool. Sure, great, whatever. You got your Scene Explorer. This is all the crap that's in your scene. But I like the layer editor, which I guess it puts it down here. I always put it on the left-hand side. So pull that out of there. Let's embiggen this cromulently. We should be able to dock to the left. So sometimes you'll get floating windows and you can't just go, You know, you can't like, it won't drop on there. So right click and then say dock and then dock to the left. Boom. Now it's in there. Okay. So what makes, I got this open. Don't need that. What makes the layer editor so awesome? Well, it's great for organizational purposes. I do not care for the Scene Explorer. I keep the layer editor open at all times, most of the time. When I'm working with you guys, I don't know. But, oh, burp. Nope, we're good. Okay. So, this triangle obviously unravels. This is the default. Everything is made by default in the default layer. Now, let's say I make a new layer. Up here is a plus button. So now we have this layer. Let's call this layer farts. F-A-R-T-S. Okay. We can add things to the fart layer by clicking and dragging. Or let's undo that. Remember your undo button right there. Let's use this button. So let's select the teapot. The teapot isn't in the fart layer, but notice right now this little green icon here, the layer editor icon, is highlighted on the farts layer. That means if we press this button, it's going to add to the active layer. Boom. So now it's in that. Now, if I want to turn this layer off, how sweet is that, right? Maybe I want to turn everything else off and just deal with the teapot, right? So making a couple different, I mean, you could put layers and layers if you want, but let's turn this back on. We could like individually pop this guy in there. We could pop that guy in there. And then we have separate layers. You know, you could name them. This is my cube layer, my whatever layer. But you can also rename these layers. Just click once, and then you can call it capital L, because I want all my L's in the same place. You could, there's some icons here, which are fantastic. So these are really handy. Let's say your computer sucks, first off. My computer is a hog, and you should be jealous. And I'm going to make you jealous right now. You ready? Bum, 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 bum. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, I have a 64-core processor in my computer because I'm crazy. You don't. If you're watching this, you don't. But I'm better than you. No, I'm kidding. Maybe your computer sucks is what I'm getting at. What if you have too much geometry on the screen, but it doesn't matter? Well, there's this sweet button over here. So select your teapot right here. Display as a box. Now you don't have to worry about that. There is an object there, but your display doesn't have to render it. It will still show up in a render. So we click this guy and let's let it go vroom. Oh my God, is my computer going to crash? Did I just talk a big game? Oh God. I was like, I talked mad trash and then my computer crashed. It's actually really bright, kind of washed out. That's weird. Anyways, so it's still there. It's just a cube because why waste all that render power? Okay. especially when you're working in sometimes complicated scenes. Like you could do that for all these guys, right? Select all those things and just, they're cubes now. Don't worry about it. You can turn them back on and off very quickly. But it saves on what you have to constantly be pushing up on your screen. Okay, what's this other bit? Okay, so there's another thing here. What's that say? It says render, doesn't it? Yep. So let's say I don't want the teapot to render. Select that guy, turn off render. Oops, wrong one. Or you can just turn off that layer. I suppose just turn off the fart layer, right? So the fart layer is no longer renderable. And boosh, it's not going to render. It's gone. It's still there, but it's just a not renderable object. Okay. And the last one, which I use pretty frequently, is just the freeze. Okay. So now I can't select it. It's just a handy thing to have. I'm clicking and dragging. Oops, see, thought I selected it, but I selected the circle there. We'll get that out of the way. So I click and drag and can't get it. Can't get it until you unfreeze the selection. Pretty cool. Let's see. So that was the layer editor. Show ribbon. Okay, the ribbon is up here. We're not really going to talk about it much right now until, oops, let's embiggen that. We're not going to talk about it until we actually use it. It is for text messages. Sorry, I got text messages. It is for polymodeling. It is your polymodeling ribbon. There's some cool stuff in there. If you're not going to use it, I suppose you can hide it. Doesn't really matter. We'll just get rid of that for now. No big deal. The curve editor. Okay, curve editor is pretty cool, but again, I don't really want to go over this too in depth because it's about animation, and I'm not getting into that yet. I want to kind of teach courses, classes, whatever on YouTube. I don't want to charge you guys anything, but it's going to take, like I don't want to put ads or any of that BS in there. But it's going to take a little bit of time to get there because I'm just pretending that you guys don't know what you're doing. And so I'm starting from the bottom up. And animation is a little further away. We could start with some cute stuff, but couple weeks. I plan to do at least 3 videos a week. It's only about an hour of my life. And then you'll have all the knowledge I do, but I don't want to get into that yet. Hierarchy panel. This is where all your objects are in relation to each other. So right now, technically, they're all on the same level. They should, does it show the layers in here? Maya's does a better job. I think Maya has a better node editor than 3D Studio Max does because you can see their creation nodes and like tons of interesting stuff about how they're created and blah 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 blah. And I honestly don't think, I don't think you can see the layers they're in, which technically layers are kind of a facade of visibility, but still. So if you have objects that are what do you call it? Held on are parented to other objects, like this guy to that guy. Now, as you can see here, I just parented that. Now there's a hierarchy. Okay, so now there's a green line here. We can zoom in. Let's just zoom in here. Oops. Zoom in here. There we go. And so there's this green line that shows that we parented that. Now, if we swap it, let's parent this one to this one. Now you can see that it's the different direction now, right? Because we parented it backwards. There we go. And we could do that with everything. It's just the hierarchy. When you do things like adding like a bone structure or some different modifications for things. I keep getting text messages at the worst time. It dings. I don't know if you can hear it, but I hear it, and it's distracting. Anywho, so this is the schematic view. I call it it's basically a node-based view. It's kind of cool. So we're going to close that. We'll get into it more later. The next one is, sorry, stop. We don't need 2. We don't even need 1. The material editor. So you can, I don't know, can you still go to the slate editor? You can. It's got to load all these stupid shaders. Hold on. It's really sad. Why is it so slow? That's really sad. Considering I just like talked a big game about my computer, like it's God's gift to computing, and then it's having trouble loading these simple shaders you can see as it goes down. Oh, come on. There we go. All right. Hopefully it's happy now. Okay. So there is the Slate material editor, which is what we're using, and I suggest you do the same. These are node based. So if I want to add like, all right, let's do a color map, and let's just do. That's a bad example. Let's say okay. So this is technically a node based material system. 3D Studio Max only got this like 8 or 10 years ago. They were kind of behind the times. Things like Blender and Maya have a very good node-based system. I mean, Maya uses Arnold as well, but we could put this into a multi-sub, and then we could duplicate this, add a couple more materials, blah blah blah. Plug this into the other one. They're sharing that. This probably doesn't mean anything to you if you've never seen it before, but now we've got two materials that are plugged into the same system. And then we could, I don't know, we could do a bunch of stuff. But this is a node-based system. This is your material editor. To start out, if you're looking for, and I kind of covered this yesterday, if you're looking for something like, oh, I need silver real quick, just use physical materials. It's not, like Arnold has their own material system, which are surface shaders. Or sorry, it's what is it called? Standard surface. There it is. But if you just want to get to the end zone, if you want to get to the touchdown area real quick, and you don't know much about Arnold or making custom shaders, there is a preset here, and just about everything you could want, plastics, glass, all that stuff is in here. It's just a drop-down menu, and then you can rename it. So just type in here whatever you want to call it. I'm gonna call it poop. There you go. So this is my poop shader, and my poop shader is, oops, didn't mean to collapse those. Poop shader is made out of granite. There you go. And it added some nodes to this. So it's kind of poopy, right? It's kind of poopy. And let's just add it to this thing. What the hell? And then we render this, and it's going to look terrible. There it is. Terrible. Okay, moving on. Okay, so let's close that. We've only got a couple menus left. We've got the render setup. This is just the details for your render, how the size of your render output here. If you're doing an animation, you have multiple multiple frames, you can change it to range, and you can go from, I don't know how long your animation is. Maybe you're going to save it to a particular location. You want to turn on and off certain functions or certain aspects of the render. In the Arnold render tab, I mean, this is the default render, right? You could use the art render. It's going to look like crap. And apparently I need to update mine. But so these are specific details that we can get into later. It's just how accurate and how detailed the render is going to be. And like I said, that's later. This is all later stuff. Let's see. Later stuff. AOV's later stuff. Denoising is later stuff. Your render view is just what we last rendered. There it is. Tra-la-la. And then your render button. Pew. There it is. Now what you could do is Arnold has a active viewport. So I hit the play button up here, and now when I rotate, it will update my render. Kind of like a real-time thingamajig. This is really helpful when you actually leave it in the viewport and you're trying to get a specific outcome, or you're messing with materials, or you're messing with UVs specifically, this is a really nice thing to do because you'll see what it looks like while it's rendering, as well as your environment. Okay, so anywho, that we can turn off by pressing that button. Let's say you love this image. Let's just go here. You love this image and you want to save it. Save image and JPEG, PNG, Targa, TIFF, IF, and EXF. I don't, or EXR. Sorry, that's a package. That's kind of a stack of things. But JPEG and PNG, Targas, I guess if it's high def, save it whatever you want, call it whatever you want, print it out, put it on your mom's fridge, tell her you're learning stuff on YouTube and that it's not a cult. Okay, let's finish up here because I wanted to actually start modeling something for it. Okay, so we can actually close that. We don't need that right now. You can always bring it back open with the button. Okay, what do we got here? So we're going to start a new project. I'm going to show you how to make your own custom buttons next time, maybe. But I'm going to go back to my view of my buttons because I need those shortcuts. Just like you can use a keyboard, I need my shortcuts. So let's do this. If you've been doing what I've been doing and you've been messing around with this, press the reset button, okay? What that's going to do is just going to flush everything and reset the user interface back to normal. I am not going to save this. It's not that nice. Actually, maybe I will. Maybe I will save this because I could use this as the backdrop to the thumbnail to the video. That's brilliant. Okay, which brings me to this guy, okay? This menu down here, and this is just an incremental save. This doesn't matter. You don't care about this. That's all this is. A save button or auto backup, sorry. And then how much time you have. You have 7 minutes and 30 seconds. And you can change that whenever you want. It's actually in your edits, tools. Which one is it? Tools? It's in one of these menus. I hate finding the menus. See it all the time, and then when I need to find it, viewport. It's an edit, isn't it? Do I have something selected? No. I just want to get into my properties. Preferences? There we go. So if you want to change your auto backup time or auto save time, it's right here. There's a lot of sweet features in here. Gizmos. One of the things I always turn off, just in case, is enable caddy controls. Turn this off. It's just a fancy look for your poly tools and your other tools. Anyways, it's stupid. I don't like it. I'll show it to you when we actually get there. But these are extra important, I don't know, options you can change. I don't know. Check it out. They're not really important right now. Gizmos, you can make them bigger. You know, if you like, mine's pretty small, right? Because my monitor is huge, so maybe I should make it bigger. Your handles, you make those bigger. I don't know. Just mess around, see what happens. If you screw it up, restore to factory settings. So, anyways, let's do the. Let's see how big my handles are. I didn't change it that much. Okay, so this down here, what I was getting at is this is your current project. You should be setting a project. Okay, so these are the shortcuts: create empty, create default, blah 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 blah. Create from current. Don't do this. Don't do this. Create empty, and don't do set. Or well, you can set active later. But so we're gonna create a default. I already have one. So anyways, you want to create a default. Click this guy. It's gonna bring this open, and this is where I keep all my 3D Studio Max projects. And I already have one, so I'm not gonna select it. But if you make a new, oh, I could just make a dummy one. Let's call it dummy. When you do set default, so select dummy again, it is going to create the file folder structure that is going to make your life a whole hell of a lot easier. All your saves go into specific folders. All your materials go into a specific folder. It's just super nice. Okay. So by that, just hit select folder, just go into it, and then hit select. Okay. Now this is going to change. My location is going to change. I've got a few projects in here. So to go back, if I'm working on something else, but I actually have a tutorial folder. So I'm going to switch to that, right? And if I do save as, it's going to put me in the tutorial folder, right? So I had a bottle. I'm just going to name this one garbage because I just made some garbage. Now, let's say I switch my project back to dummy. And it's like, oh man, should I save this file? Save as? No, I shouldn't because it needs to go into, oh, it didn't change it for dummy. That's weird. Oh, it's because it didn't change the location. Anyways, so just make sure that you are in the specific folder of your project and set default, okay? Create default. If you want to change it, you can do it up here as well. It's just your project, and then these buttons are right there. And then you got your recent project, same thing, okay? So I saved my project. I can go back to one of my other projects here. So for instance, let's just reset this now because I want my buttons back, okay? So let's do the reset. I do want to reset. I saved the file. It's fine. Okay, now the window's all screwed up. I could go back to mine. I got my fancy buttons here, which help me quite a bit. Go fast. And then for you, you can go back to your default if you really want to. Oh, change. You can go back to your reset to default state. And then, tra-la-la, you got yours back. But I like my melon space because I got my fancy little shortcuts right here. Okay, so I know I promised quite a bit. I hope I don't under-deliver here. But those are just the basic user interface buttons. At the bottom, let's just go over this real quick. There's just a couple more things left. This is your animation timeline. You can click and drag this and nothing happens until you start setting keys. It gives you 100 frames by default. Below that is your scripting. If you get into it, if I remember right, it understands Python, doesn't it? I think it does. I don't do a whole lot of scripting. Down here, this is another awesome thing. All right, let's make 2 boxes. Let's say you just want to focus on the one. There is a button right here to isolate that box. Now, the other box looks gone. In fact, if you open up your layer editor here, it's just going to show that it's hidden, okay? Now, if you click this button again, bam, there it is. This is just a nice isolate selection button, and then it's going to come back, okay? So if you're really wanting to focus on something, you got a scene full of crap, or you could do 2, right? Let's put 3 boxes here. And I just want to focus on these 2, then you can do that. You can also update your selection, like, anyways, you can play with it. There's other buttons in here. And they do essentially the same thing. There is a lock, selection lock, absolute mode, so you can type in the location of it. These are the world coordinates next to it, what I was talking about earlier with the rotation. Like I said, this is what I've been doing before, just right-clicking these spinners. They're called spinners down here, and it'll put it back to 0. Okay, just right-clicking the spinner. We could stack these up if we wanted to. See, I tried to select that, and it moved it. So that's what I'm saying. Sometimes you want to hit Q first and then select it with Q and then hit the move tool because, tiny things happen. Okay. And then you have your play. These are connected to your animation controls down there. Don't worry about those. Like I said, we're not going to mess with those. And then we've got the keyframe functionality down here. There's shortcuts to the keyframing. Not going to worry about those right now. And then again, your navigation tools. The last thing I didn't talk about was the creation panel. I think this is just a creation panel over here. I think it's probably got a better name. But it is like it's integral. It's got everything. All right. So you got making stuff, modifying stuff, hierarchy, motion, display. Uh, Maybe you only want to show certain things. You can turn that on and off here. Um, I suggest freeze controls, like if you don't like using the freeze button up here, up to you. Unfreeze all right there. I mean, just different shortcuts to get to the same place. Okay, so let's start this thing I was talking about that we're gonna model here. Let's just reset one more time, just in case. I like the reset button. I do not want to save. I want to get back to normal. Do you really want to reset? Yes, I do. Okay. This guy. Okay, we're going to model this guy. Oof. I just went through this tutorial. All right, we're just going to do a little bit of it. In fact, what are we going to start with? Maybe we'll start with the bottom plate. Can't rotate it. So this is one of those projects where you can't spin it around unless you have it in your hand. Maybe, geez, what should we start with? Let's start with this bottom piece here. It looks like it's one big piece. But the great thing about this object is it's very symmetrical. Okay? It's very symmetrical in that you can cut it right down the middle, and then you only have to do half of it, right? That's pretty slick. So let's start out with the shapes that we know we have. We got some flat boxes here. We've got 2 sets of cylinders. It'll be us to decide if we want to use 8, 16, or 32 sided cylinders. Like I said, we go with power of 2 so that they're perfectly round. Let's see. We got some rounded rectangles here. I don't think this is going to be too bad. I think this will be pretty quick. So I'm just going to start. I'm going to go for maybe a few minutes here, just to give you an idea. And then maybe next time I'll try to pull this up. Maybe I can do this. I'll just put it in the... Let's do this. Let's cheat. All right, so I'm going to drag this, put it on my desktop here. Where is it? Right. Let's put the item on my desktop. You can do this too. We're just going to use 2. So we've got this viewport layouts. We're just going to use left and right. Okay. We're going to use this front. So let's change this to front. Front. Let's make a box, or let's make a plane. How big is this picture? Whatever, it doesn't matter how big it is. We're just going to make a plane here. So let's go like this. Boop. Sure, good enough. And then we're going to not keep it on wireframe. We want to do default shading. And we want this to be our perspective view. And we also don't want this on wireframe. We want this on wireframe. We don't want wireframe override. And so on my desktop, you can't see it. Just click and drag this picture right on there. Okay. Now we got the picture. This is a bad habit. We're just doing it fast. Okay. So now we're going to scale this picture to what we think is accurate. Okay. So that looks good to me. I'm going to move this guy way off. I'm going to zoom out. I'm going to move it way out. And I'm just going to use this viewport as my... So I just moved it over, and then I focused on it in this viewport. And then I'm just going to use that as my example. Okay, I could even make this smaller if I wanted. So shrink it up. And then zoom in on this guy. And we could lock the viewport if we want, but I'm just not going to touch it. Okay. In fact, we could freeze this. Right click. So the problem is if I freeze this, it's going to go gray. You probably have this problem. If you've ever want to freeze something, it's like, oh, I still want to see the picture. Well, select, right click, and go to properties, object properties. Where the hell is object properties? There it is. A lot of words. And then it should be show frozen in gray. Let's uncheck that. And hell, let's not make it renderable either. So it'll just not render when we can put it right in the middle. It's not going to render. But so now when we freeze this guy, we can't select it and it can't move. So let's just start plotting out some of the shapes right here. Okay, so there's a cylinder right down the middle. Let's start with the cylinder right down the middle. Let's give it 16 sides. Let's just start with that. I've never made this before. I'm doing it live, so let's see how it goes. I'm gonna put it right in the middle, and then I'm gonna go like this, maybe make it like that, and then I'm gonna turn on edged faces so I can see what I'm doing here. I'm gonna zoom in some, and then I'm gonna turn it on its side. Okay, so I want to turn it 90 degrees. So I turned my rotational snapping tool on, and then hit E, and then rotate this 90 degrees. And so it's 5 degrees snapping. Perfect. Okay, now I'm just gonna move it into the middle. Let's put the center of this guy. Let's affect pivot. Put the center of the object. Oops, center of the object. There we go. And then, so that's in your hierarchy panel here. So make sure that the pivot's in the middle, and then let's right click these spinners so it goes right in the middle. Okay, because we only want to do half of this thing. We don't want to model the whole thing. That's crazy. And then let's get rid of, we don't need height segments right now. We'll put in our own. And we're just going to do this bottom piece. Okay. So I'm going to add an editable poly. And I'm just going to go at it and kind of tell you what I'm envisioning while I do it. Okay. So I am just going to move the oops. I wish these would stay open. Sometimes I misclick and then they all roll up. That is something I wish they would fix. You could like right click and say never move. But no. Anyway, okay, so let's move the vertices over. We're going to do one side, okay? And in fact, we could just, we won't do that yet. We're just going to do one side, but we'll lay some stuff out. So this looks pretty short. Maybe there? Maybe there? We're going to do this spot right here. In fact, we could probably lay this over. I can show you how to do that next time. We could lay it over, and then we could make sure our object lines up. But that's a little later. Actually, it would be smart. We should probably do that. Okay. Let's see here. Let's make an object. Extrude out of the two bottom faces here. We could do that. We could lay it flat, or we could combine. We could do like a rounded. We could start with, no, that's kind of stupid too. Man, I really should have planned this out. I look like a big dingus trying to do this. Okay. So let's just go for it. Let's go. We're just gonna go. We're just gonna do it. Let's just do it. Okay. Let's grab that guy. We're gonna control click this guy. It might be a little tall. I feel like it might be a little tall. Yeah, it's not that tall. So let's get rid of that guy. I've been talking too long. My voice is all bleh. So let's extend this out. So we held shift and dragged. And we're just going to line these up with this axis. So the ribbon up here, I just aligned it to the y-axis. And I think we're going to get rid of this for now. We're just going to get rid of that. So I double click that edge loop because I don't want it in the way. And I'm just going to remove that edge loop because we got to kind of work out the shape before we worry about the edge loops. Oops, we didn't want to get rid of that edge loop. We got rid of the vertices too. We don't want to do that. So let's remove, and then let's switch to these and get rid of the individual vertices as well. So let's remove that one, and then we'll remove this one. Remove. There we go. Okay, and it looks like there's a break right here. So, God, see, I clicked terribly. My hands are just shaky. So we got to reopen this panel, this lecture panel. There we go. Okay. So I'm going to add an edge loop right here. So we're going to say connect. And see how it added the edge loop all the way around there, right? So now I'm going to line it up with the y-axis, or the z-axis again. No, it was the y-axis. Sorry. Jeez. Undo that. Press Y. And let's move it over here. Because we're going to extrude this middle bit in. So I'm going to put my rotation there. So I make sure I rotate around. And so this is the inside here. We're going to grab this face and we're going to move it in. Probably help if we had the color too. So you click that. You could do extrude or shift and drag. Shift and drag will do the same thing. So I'm moving in that dimension. It's the x-axis. You can see it changes at the bottom at the world coordinates. And you can just see because I clicked and dragged right there. So instead of trying to line it up with my mind, I'm just going to right click there. Bam. Snap to the middle. Okay. If we look at it from the top viewport, it'll be snapped to the middle. In fact, let's just move our pivot to the bottom. So we'll change effect pivot. Let's turn on the snapping tool and let's move it to the bottom. Oops, we don't have vertex snapping on. We do. Why is it not snapping the vertice? Why isn't it snapping to my vertices? Well, let's try edge segment or face. Use anything. Let's get rid of grid point. We don't need that. What is going on here? I do this all the time. This is very weird. Let's just turn on all of them and we will find something to snap to. This is strange. All right, center to object. What have I done? Ha! I froze my object. Jeez. It's because I'm clicking too fast. I apologize, guys. I just wanted to be so smart and work so fast. So that's why I couldn't snap to it. Because you have to have it unfrozen. Because apparently I accidentally froze that layer. So that's something to work or look out for. All right, so there. See, snap to the thing. Jeez. I don't usually have these problems because I'm modeling for an audience. That probably means I should stop. I've been going for a while here. So I just wanted to move it up so it would be on top of the grid. So right click, drop it right there. And so now you can see this would be my halfway point if I wanted to mirror it. I don't want to yet, but I would mirror it in the Z. And then you can see we've got the bottom of the platform. I mean, obviously this isn't it yet. We've got a ways to go, but I just wanted to create the bottom piece to get that going. So what we could do, what could we do? We could just add some, we could do a nice, what do you call it? Could do a nice chamfer on the bottom here. So grab the edge. And if you don't want this on, you don't have to have it on, but I have it on. So let's just do a chamfer. And this is the thing I was talking about. This is the caddy controls. I like this caddy control because I can move the window around. The other caddy control is a little weird. So if I up this, and that's kind of a big curve. It's kind of a shallow curve. So I could add more segments around it like that. I like to have a center one. So let's do that one. And then let's maybe let's make it 3.5. This way you can type it in. 3.5. And I'm happy with that and press OK. Now later we can add the edge loops. It doesn't really matter for this object because we're going to use, what do you call it? We're going to use smoothing groups to get the shape we want. But right now it's looking a little thick. So let's go like this. Let's bring it in. Turn off your snapping tool. Sorry I had that little brain fart there. That made me look stupid. So let's pull that in. It's a little bit shallow and it feels like it's longer, right? I'm just looking at a picture, like, so it's a little bit longer. I mean, this is a stupid project because you could just go download one, right? Yeah, of course you could. And let's add this little extra chunk at the end. If you look down here, there is a little bit of an extra piece. So what we can do is hold Control and Shift, click and drag, like that. And now we'll clone it to the element. That's just shift and drag. With shift and drag is just it's extrude or it's duplicate. If it's a object, it's duplicate. If it's a sub object, um, it will be an extrude unless you hold control. So anyways, clone element. And now I'm gonna click. Gotta take off control and shift over here. Anyways, now I'm gonna grab this border. I go like this, and then I'm gonna shift and drag it a little bit, like that. And then I'm gonna cap this guy. Okay. And now it's capped. And now we've got the workings. I mean, it's not going to be perfect. We could render this and show you how not perfect it is. In fact, let's destroy it with a turbo smooth. How's that sound? Yeah, it's awesome. Let's not do that. Even if we had smoothing groups, yeah, it's a little bit better. So we're actually going to tighten that up quite a bit. But let's just give it a render. And maybe let's make it silver, just a color swatch for now. Let's not add the custom metal. And let's just give it a render. Yeah, it's not totally garbage, right? We're getting there. We just did the base. And in fact, we could probably use this and kind of knock out the rest of it pretty quick. But I'm going to save that for the next one because I've been going hard here for about an hour and I want to go to bed because I'm an old man. I'm not really an old man. I just don't want to keep doing this all night. I got some other projects. I got a life too. Ooh, look at that. That's not good. All right, so check this out. So let's turn on the active viewport and let's show you how bad this is, right? So I didn't see this because I was doing it fast, but the smoothing groups have failed us because look at that. Look at that. Hey, come back. There we go. See, look at that. That's the problem if you're not taking good care of how smoothing groups work. Let's turn off turbo smooth. Yeah, so we need extra edges here that dictate because this is a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5-sided polygon. You try to smooth a 5-sided polygon, you're gonna have a bad time. So anyway, I'm gonna stop looking at this because I'll probably just keep working on it like a crazy person. I'm gonna go back to this full screen thing. Okay, so this was long. I hope it was valuable. I'm just gonna call it, like interface or something, so you guys can get kind of an idea how it works. Hopefully it's a reference. It looked like a couple people watched my video the other day. That was cool. Yeah, I keep going back to my face, but we should be looking at this project, so let's do that. Yeah, so that's the beauty of this thing. We will pick up on it tomorrow. In fact, I'm going to save it. I'm going to show you what to do. So let's drop a new project, okay? So project, create default. I'm going to bring my keyboard over here and my local projects, and I'm going to call it phone stand. Phone. Actually, I despise capital letters. Phone. Stand. See how long it takes me to do stuff? I bet you guys probably called it something much faster. Anyways, so phone stand and then select folder. And now that we have this project, you can see the project changed. It's in here now. File, save as. And I was probably going to put me in the wrong folder. Nope, it put me in the right one. It put me in the right one because we reset the software. And so now I'm going to save this as phone stand. Phone stand. And we'll pick up with it tomorrow. Like I said, I could just keep blasting through it, but I'll be up all night. I mean, sometimes I don't know when to stop. I really like this software. Anyway, so save. And then when we actually use, when we line up the camera to make sure our thing is correct, it'll be cool. It'll be cool. It'll be cool and accurate. So, let me go back to my face here. Yeah, I hope this is helpful. I hope maybe you got a better idea for what some of the buttons do. Maybe it's not as intimidating. I know when I started, I started using 3D Studio Max and I started using Maya in high school. And I didn't know what half the buttons meant. They're crazy, they're everywhere. And they all do something. And somebody has to design all those buttons. Can you believe that? That's crazy. Um, and I wish there's not enough. There's not enough of the buttons because when I make custom things, like I want to load in my own buttons, and it's just a pain in the ass. But anywho, bedtime. So, if you thought this was helpful, awesome. Come back. We're gonna keep working on it. If you thought it was garbage, that sucks, and I've wasted my life. But I'm gonna do it again. So you can be here if you want, because I'm gonna be here. I'm just gonna bring up this ending thing. Again, this is my channel. It's beautiful, and if you want to check out my cartoons, which I'm hoping to add to soon, hopefully this weekend. It's just at Barbaric Melons for YouTube, but this is Barbaric Melons Live. Get into it, and hopefully you learn something. Otherwise, whatever. See if I care. Have a good night, and maybe we'll see you next time. Cheers.